Welcome back to the Rock Room and another episode of the Rock Your Divorce podcast, where we help men successfully navigate the divorce process in a healthy way. I'm your host, Stephen Valente. If you're like me, you are mentally and emotionally exhausted. You are telling yourself that you can't go on, or this is way too hard for you to handle. You're suffering from low self-esteem and low self-confidence. You may be willing to give in or concede during this process just to make it stop. And you also may be telling yourself, and you may believe, that if you weren't here, things would be better for everybody, including yourself. If that sounds like you, then you are absolutely in the right place. Because in today's episode, we're going to talk about developing mental resilience and fortitude and how that drives success in your life, not only during the divorce process, but well after. If that sounds like something you're interested in, then plug in, turn it up, and let's hit the stage. Okay, so as we talk about on this podcast, there are 7 key areas of your life that if you focus on them each and every day, you will not only navigate this divorce process in a healthy way, but you will absolutely set yourself up to thrive after it's all done. The visual that I normally give is that of a 7-channel mixing board or a sound board. And if you think about those 7 key areas of your life, each of those faders represents the amount of time and effort and energy you're putting into each of those 7 key areas. And that fluctuates not only sometimes hour by hour through the day, but daily. And again, as we've talked about, it's impossible to think, especially during the divorce process, that you'll be able to equally balance all 7 of those throughout the day or throughout the week. Although the goal is eventually to build those tools, to learn those tips and tricks, and to really incorporate habits and routines in your life within each of those 7 that allows that. And this is what happens during the divorce process. So today we're going to talk about fader number 2, which is your mental health and the mental area of your life. And one key component underneath that is developing resilience and fortitude. When we talk about divorce, we always go back to that your first fader, your first key area of your life must be spiritual. It must be faith first. You have to build a foundation of faith in order for the rest of the divorce process and, quite frankly, the rest of your life to function properly. And I encourage each of you to watch some of the videos that I've posted already, previous episodes. We're going to talk in future episodes related to that. So make sure that you go back and you either re-watch them or you watch them for the first time to really set that foundation. But we're going to focus on the second fader today, which is your mental health and the mental area of your life. And the second component of that, which is developing resilience and fortitude. I say all of that to say because next to your faith, your ability to get through the mental game that the divorce process brings you each and every day as a man is paramount to how you not only navigate it, but you succeed in your life afterwards. The topic of today, we've addressed it, is called warrior weariness. And we're going to talk about what warrior weariness is and, of course, ways to overcome that a little bit later in today's episode. But I figured it would be best to talk a little bit about some mistakes, not only that I make, but the individuals that I've coached or am coaching right now are making in this process when it comes to the mental game of divorce. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and we've had episodes already on this, is that negative mindset. And it's allowing a negative environment to surround you throughout this process. And I have a whole episode that we've already done related to removing negativity and quite frankly, consuming positivity in its place, and what that mental mindset, that negative mindset can do to you throughout this divorce process, because the process itself is very rigorous. It's not for the weak. It's it can be devastating and crippling. Not only things internally, but the external things that are going on. So if you're looking at the world through that negative lens, you're allowing that negativity to come into your life. You are not going to navigate this in a healthy way, and you are definitely not going to thrive after this is done. So that negative mindset is the first one. I've seen a couple other. I myself was guilty of this by allowing those critics to change my mindset about myself. Whether it was family members or past family members, past friends. We call those social media moles, or those flying monkeys, in a previous episode, related to folks that are out to ruin your reputation, to tarnish your character, to propagate false negatives or stories about you or what happened in the divorce or what led to the divorce. And all of that plays in your mind. You begin to believe that, you are not that person that you think you are. And it begins to play with you a little bit, both from a self-confidence perspective and a self-esteem. The other thing that it does is it really expends a lot of mental energy and emotional energy, because you feel like you need to go and tell everybody the truth. You need to set the record straight. You need to, try to convince people that are believing all of these false narratives or all of these things related to what happened or what didn't happen. And it's not healthy, right? So I encourage you not to fall victim to those types of games, those mind games, that people are playing around you, and really focus on yourself and your mental health and all the things that we're going to talk about on how to battle through some of these things. I think when looking internally, we also play mind games on ourselves, and you may be doing this right now, where you are playing or replaying situations or scenarios over and over again that are not healthy to you. You may be circling the drain in remorse or regret, or if you had done something to cause either your wife to file for divorce on you, or if somehow, some way you feel guilt or shame for something that happened, you will find yourself in that cycle of what I called it a Groundhog Day, where you just can't get out of the loop. You can't get out of those negative thoughts, those negative scenarios, obsessing over things, replaying or reliving things that happened, and that is not healthy for you. The other piece to that is that you're playing games, you're thinking about scenarios, or you're creating complete fantasies about what could happen, not only during the divorce process, but after. And that plays a mind game with you, where you find yourself throughout the day being distracted, or keeping yourself up at night related to these fantasies that, is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No. Like some of these things, there's no way that things are going to happen the way that you are manufacturing these things in your mind. So I caution you to not only focus on what you can control when it comes to that, but don't get caught up in the mental mind games that you play on yourself. And if you do catch yourself doing that, we're going to share a couple things that you can do a little bit later on in the episode to work through that. So I think that's a good thing. A couple other things that come to mind when it comes to some of the mistakes that either I made or that men that I'm coaching right now are making. The first one is that you think that you're good. Like, I've got this mentally. I'm gonna push this aside. I'm not gonna deal with it. It's gonna go away. Everything will be fine. Not having a healthy dose of reality during this divorce process can really be devastating to you, the children, the ones that you love, and the outcome of this divorce. So if you don't, build those tools to be mentally resilient and to handle what's coming at you, and not put your head in the sand or pretend it doesn't exist or sweep things under the rug as if everything's going to be fine and nothing can happen. I just caution you about having that kind of laissez-faire feel about what's going on with you in your life right now, because it's not going to help you short term, and it's definitely not going to help you long term when you end up where that type of thinking will bring you. Some of the other things that I've seen is that the distractions that are going on, the mental distractions, you seem to kind of drift away, or you get hyper fixated on something, and that leads to poor time management. That leads to not getting things done, whether that's with your kids or whether that's with work or yourself. And if you find yourself in one of those mental paths, I again encourage you to watch the episode we have on set lists and agendas and building agendas, and what does it mean to have healthy routines and healthy habits that can get you through hour by hour, day by day during this process, because it can be very taxing mentally with all the things that you've got going on in your life to begin with. And then you throw this huge piece of divorce and this divorce process on you. And if you don't have healthy ways of coping with certain things that are popping up, you can find yourself distracted. You can find yourself lost. You can find yourself disoriented. And that's not healthy for you, and it's definitely not healthy for those that are counting on you and that you're responsible for, or when things need to get done for the divorce process and you're not getting them done on time. So I caution you on that, and I encourage you to, again, start to implement some of the things that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes to help you get through those types of thoughts. The last thing that I want to caution you on this, and we're going to have an entire episode related to sobriety in many different forms, is men have a tendency to utilize substances, whether that's prescription drugs, whether that's illegal drugs, whether that's alcohol, whether that's pornography, whatever the numbing agent is for you, you need to be hyper cautious and aware of that trigger. Because what I found in men that I'm dealing with is that, we'll go and try to find something to fill that void or to distract us from the thoughts and the feelings that we're having, instead of being a man and sitting in those thoughts and working through them in a healthy and productive way. The easy way is just to numb it, right? It's to go out with our buddies and drinking, or it's to swipe on some dating apps and try to meet somebody, or it's, try to remove ourselves from society in an unhealthy way and focus on things, maybe like pornography or other distractions that can really lead to destruction. And my encouragement to you is, don't make the mistake of pretending that these mental games aren't going on, or the weight of the mental side of this divorce as it presses on you, that somehow, some way you're going to avoid it by filling it with a bunch of unhealthy habits or distractions. So those are some of the key mistakes that I've seen that men make or that I made during my process that I don't want you to make during yours. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the mind games that we kind of do play, and that maybe how we can get through some of this as we walk into the idea of warrior weariness, what it is, and how to overcome it. So when comparing you as a rock star to real rock stars, we need to talk a little bit about rock stars and warrior weariness. Now, it doesn't take a lot of a Google search or a Chat GPT search to find that there are dozens and dozens of songs out there related to warrior weariness when it comes to the life of a rock star. In fact, when you think about all the songs that have been written about life on the road or touring or the exhaustion that comes from being a rock star, touring the world, playing shows, there's a romanticism a little bit about that lifestyle. But if you listen to the lyrics of these songs and you really look deep into it, there are things like isolation or missing home, or all the things about being alone on the road that don't really paint that lifestyle in a positive light. Now, yes, there are songs out there about the excess that rock stars and rock bands have when they go out on tour. There's a lot of us that started music because, we wanted to live that lifestyle. We wanted to have that excitement and be able to experience all the things that go along with living the life of a rock star. But specifically about warrior weariness and songs related to that, it really paints a picture of, being excluded, being alone or being isolated, having that exhaustion or that tiredness or that, the repetition that goes each and every day with being in a band. There's a couple ones that come to mind. I think, if you think very quickly about two of the most well-known songs from, two different rock eras, it's Bon Jovi's Wanted Dead or Alive, or my personal favorite when it comes to kind of the life on the road story, which is Bob Seger's Turn the Page. I'm a huge Seger fan, always have been, because I grew up in Detroit, and Seger has a long history of just great rock and roll cuts. But one of the things that stood out to me very early on as a Seger fan was the song Turn the Page, because there was that balance between the positive of being on the road and the negative to being on the road. So when I had my dreams of becoming a rock star and playing rock bands when I was small, that song stood out to me, and it's a great tune anyway. But when you think about the song Turn the Page and what it speaks to, in essence, a rock star's warrior weariness, we're talking about a loneliness. We're talking about exhaustion. We're talking about that feeling of being alienated from the ones that we love. And although we're surrounded by all of these people in our lives, you don't necessarily feel like you have somebody there that you can truly connect with. Now, that may have been your former spouse or soon-to-be former spouse, but it's just that kind of that isolationism that goes along with it, right? And if you listen to Turn the Page, there's kind of like this resilience that is needed as a rock star to get through this tour, right? It's required to face the challenges that you face while you're on the road alone, playing these shows, going from city to city, and doing your job as a musician, right? And the longingness and the repetition and that solitude that he speaks about in Turn the Page is, it's sad, right? To feel that. But but ultimately, if you think about it, it's really kind of that you're looking for normalcy in your life. You're looking for things to return to being at home and as is. And warrior weariness as a rock star on tour, and those of us that are going through the divorce process now, is there is a strict correlation between the two, right? That the feelings that you're feeling right now with warrior weariness in divorce is kind of virtually the same feelings, although they are in two different experiences. And okay, and by that I mean, if you look at warrior weariness from a divorce perspective, I mean, this is a mental and emotional and a physical exhaustion that you're facing each and every day, right? During this divorce process, all three, I'll call those the faders that we talk about. All three of those faders are really pulled into this warrior weariness. And this comes from that battling each and every day of the challenges that you're facing as a man throughout this divorce process. And if you think about all the weight that you carry, or it feels like you're carrying all of this weight, like there's these burdens that you're carrying, and some of you, I know I didn't rest much. I don't sleep much as it is, but there were days that would go by that I was up and I didn't have that physical rest. So I was mentally tired, I was emotionally tired, and now I'm physically tired because I can't fall asleep at night from all of the mind games that are going on. All of the warrior weariness that I'm feeling was really kind of coming from this prolonged stress and this prolonged pain that I had. And if you're going through it now, it's hard to dig out of that, right? It's hard for you to see beyond the now. And we're going to talk about living in the present moment and enjoying that present moment and being present, with your children and with the people that you love, and experiencing life after divorce with such gratitude and joy for the here and the now. And that's a healthy thing to do. But when you're in that warrior weariness part of the divorce process, not unlike a rock star on the road, you don't know when the next day is going to end, right? I mean, it is, another gig. Like, when is this tour going to end? When are we going to stop going to cities? And that's how it feels with this warrior weariness as a man when you're going through divorce. It's the Groundhog Day. It's the same thing over and over again. You're getting caught in these patterns, and you don't know when it's going to end, and it feels like it's never going to end. And those are the mind games that come up to you and challenge you each and every day in this process. So that's prolonged stress and pain. And really, at the end of the day, what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to hold it all together, and that's going to lead to burnout. And unless you have some very specific things set up for yourself to overcome that warrior weariness and all the feelings that go along with it, unless you are intentional and you have things ready for yourself, you will get stuck in that warrior weariness cycle. You will look at each and every day as if it is the same day over again. You don't know when it's going to end, and it's going to play mental games with you that are very unhealthy and destructive. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the things now that we know what warrior weariness is and how you as a rock star can compare to the other rock stars out there in the world. And what can we do to get past the warrior weariness and really be strong mentally, have that mental resilience, have that fortitude that we're talking about, and what we can do to utilize it not only during the process, but after it's done. Okay, so let's talk about who we can go to with that. Now, the first and foremost, you've got to have a therapist, right? I've talked in a previous episode about making sure that you're picking the right therapist, you're going consistently, you're doing all of those things that you need to do to understand the feelings that you're going through and work through those feelings and have the tools that you can do that kind of once you move along, if those feelings pop up, you can handle those on your own. But first and foremost, you got to know that there are people out there that are ready, willing, and able to help you get through this mental game, right? And the number one person is your therapist. I'll also say that, what I called my angels, or that small circle of people that you absolutely trust, that you can be vulnerable, that you can be truthful, and that you can share this, what you're going through with, those are also people that are available. Or you've got support groups, you've got coaches, you've got a lot of people out there. So do not feel like you're alone, and do not feel like, there's nobody that you can talk to about this, because ultimately getting through the mind game and really building that resilience and fortitude is going to set you up not only to successfully get through this divorce process, but well after. I promise you that. The second thing that you can do is in each of these 7 key areas of our life that we talk about here on this podcast, there are habits and routines that if you implement them, you will absolutely be able to navigate all of this warrior weariness that's coming along, because you're putting your time and your effort and your energy into other things in your life, and you're not just stuck in the mental games, right? So some of them, we've talked about in previous episodes. We've got other episodes coming up about each of those 7 key areas and what to do specifically underneath them, how to implement that. So I encourage you, watch the episodes, take notes. We'll have a call to action, at the end of this, if you want to set up a call with me so that I can help you. There's all these different things that you can do within these 7 habits, but you can absolutely do this. What you have to do first is you have to own your mind, okay? And this is another piece where I think sometimes we are our own worst enemy as men. We have negative self-talk. We play those negative scenarios in our mind. We come up with all of these different excuses or reasons why, or we let our mind, kind of run on autopilot about certain things, certain beliefs, maybe from our childhood, maybe from our marriage, where we have to get out of our own head, because your mind is going to test you. And if you aren't capable and ready and have those tools to be able to basically tell your mind what you're going to do or where you're going to go or what you're not going to do, then you're letting this autopilot run, and you're kind of giving up on owning your life and owning this process and being able to truly become the man that you know that you can be, that God has created you to be, so that you can be that for, number 1, your children, and number 2, for everybody that you love or will love in the future. So I encourage you that, like I said at the beginning of this episode, the mental game, the mental part of your life comes second next to your faith for a reason. And that is because if you are not in that mindset and you do not believe who you are, what you have, and where you're going is all for the positive, you will be stuck in this process. You will be, whether the divorce papers are filed or not, or when the stamp hits, you're going to still be stuck. And that is not healthy for you. It is not healthy for your children, and is not healthy for the future that God has intended for you to have. So own your mind. Couple other things before we go. Number one, no one else is coming to save you, right? You've probably heard it before. You probably know it, but there's kind of this feeling that, oh, well, my attorney's going to help me, or, I've got some friends that are going to do this, or, I'll get through this, by myself, or whatever it is. I'm here to tell you that one of the things that I learned very early on is the only person that you can guarantee is going to be there for you is you. And unless you are prepared and ready to be the man that you need for yourself, you're letting yourself down, right? This is not a game. This is not something that, oh, it's going to be fine. It'll take care of itself, or we'll just wait to see what happens. No, this is where you have to step up as a man. And as I've said before, what started the Rock Your Divorce idea was that whole scene in the Rockstar movie where the lead singer of this band trips and falls during his first performance. And when he hits that ground and he splits his head open and the microphone goes out and he's disoriented, he's knocked out, and the band still plays, when he realizes where he is in his life at that moment, he's got two choices. The first choice is to get up and walk backstage and give up, right? Give up, give in, just, not pursue his dream. And that wasn't an option for me. The second piece was to figure out where you are, wipe off the blood that's dripping in your face, and get up and finish the gig. There's too many people, including your band, which I call my kids. There's too many people in that arena, which are all the people that you love, that count on you, that look forward to spending time with you, being with you, loving you for who you are. There's too many of those people to not get up and finish this gig. And I'm going to tell you that we're going to have a whole episode on men and suicide related to divorce, those going through divorce and those recently after. But if you're listening to me right now and you are having thoughts or feelings that you being on this earth is not as good as you being away, then I am encouraging you to pick up the phone and call anybody. Email me. Head to my website, email me, and let me know. But talk to your therapist, talk to your angels, pull somebody aside, because you are needed in this world. Your kids need you, your family needs you, and I will guarantee you, this may be a little controversial, but at the end of the day, nobody, including your former wife, is worth you leaving this earth for, okay? So I encourage you to start to go through some of these things, that if you're feeling that warrior weariness, and that's the answer that somehow, some way you're coming up with, you need to dismiss that, and you need to get help, and you need to do the right thing for you and the people that you love, and that's remain here. I'll leave you with this. I'm going to put a picture here up on the screen of a picture that I saw on Instagram very early on, and it spoke to me in relation to not only the Rockstar movie scene that I've explained several times on this podcast, but also as a man. And this picture that you're looking at spoke to me as a warrior, someone who went out and fought hard for himself and his family each and every day, that the divorce process tried to beat down, tried to crush and crumble. And the easy thing to do would be to stay down. The easy thing to do as a man would be to give up. But I'm encouraging you, whether it's the Rockstar movie, whether it's this picture, whatever it is, you are a rock star. You are a warrior. You are a man who has much to give, not only to himself and his family and his community around you, but God has created you to do something on this earth that you still have yet to do. So I encourage you, don't take a look at the things that seem to be going wrong right now in your life, but I want you to know that this is a very small season of your life. And if you do these things in these 7 key areas, you will absolutely navigate the divorce process in a healthy way. And I promise you, you have an amazing, thriving life after this process is done. So, if anything that I've said here today strikes a chord with you or resonates with you, I encourage you go to www.rockyourdivorce.com, schedule a free 30-minute call with me, because I know that I can help you not only navigate this divorce process in a healthy way, but absolutely thrive afterwards. I also ask that you like and subscribe to the Rock Your Divorce podcast. And if you know any man who's going through this process right now, they may be starting it, or they may be just into it, or they're divorced, but they're still not yet healed. They're still not yet living the life that they should live. I encourage you to share this podcast with them. Invite them here to the Rock Room so that we can help together navigate this divorce process in a healthy way and thrive afterwards. That's it for today's episode. I thank you for listening and watching. Join me here in the Rock Room next time for another episode of the Rock Your Divorce podcast.